Okay, so this is the how-to video for assembling the hand terminal prop from the Expanse. I sell this as a kit and a fully assembled um, product on my Etsy store. So first of all, we're going to start with the pieces that you're going to get in the kit. So this is the base. You can see it's kind of stretchy. It's been printed out of TPU, but I print it with a lot of infill, like 50%. So it's quite rigid, but it does have some give and has a nice pattern to it. I think it looks reminiscent of the pieces from the show as well. Okay, so that's the base. This part is what I call the electronics, quote unquote. It basically holds the coin cell and the LEDs. There's not a complicated circuit or anything here. We have two LEDs that basically bridge the gap across a coin cell. Originally I designed these for bigger LEDs, so I decided not to make them smaller, even though the ones that I build have smaller LEDs, but that's up to you. Okay, next piece. This is the base. Very simple, just a little square. Has some kind of guidelines. You can see this is how it's going to fit together. And the last piece is going to be the home button, or button, whatever you want to call it. This has got a what's called a compliant mechanism. So you can see a little bit when I'm pushing on it how it flexes. So this acts as the button. Here is a better angle in a second. There we go. You can see it kind of coming out. That's the opposite of how it would actually function, but obviously it works in both directions. Yeah, so simple little design. I love these compliant mechanisms. You don't need any fancy parts or print separate things and then put them together afterwards. Doesn't look great underneath because of the supports, but it's okay. So now let's get to actually putting this stuff together. Again, this is the parts that you'll receive along with the LEDs, whatever color you happen to choose. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the blue LEDs because that's just what was closest. So we're now part of the UN or Earthers or whatever else you want to call. We also have red and yellow for Mars and the belt. Belters are my favorite, but always loved the lingo. The casting was so well done too. Okay, so let's talk about the battery a little bit. I can't ship the battery, so you're going to have to provide your own. This is a 2032 coin cell. This is the positive side. I'm trying to move it around. Hopefully the lighting and everything comes together so you guys can actually see that, but it is 2032 and it just slides in like that. That's upside down, but you can see there's a little bit of movement or room, in here. That's by design. You can use other cells. There's a lot that are really close, 2032s, 2035s. There's all kinds of different coin cells. So you could probably make a lot of different ones work. All right, so let's get the LEDs installed. When you get these, they have two legs. One's a positive and a negative. It does matter. You'll see one is longer than the other, and they have these little, like, you can kind of just make it out as I put it over my hand. But anyway, a few millimeters down, there's, I guess it's more like centimeter, but right there where I just pinched it with my fingers, there's some little crimped areas, and that's basically there from the design to show you, like, don't cut lower than this kind of thing. But just a guideline. So we're going to use that guideline to bend. See, I just get about a 45-degree angle here, and then the long leg is going to go on the bottom. The short leg is going to be on the top, and we need to create a little more distance here. So you see, I just kind of grab it with the fingernail and pull it out. If you want, you can create a little bit more of a gap in between too. It's not completely necessary. It can depend on the LEDs you have. We'll talk more about that in a minute when we get to creating the gasket for the battery. You can see right there it came on as I came in the little foreshadowing for you. Okay, so we've got the one. So you drop it in on that side, and then we want to do a mirror image on the other side. So same thing, we'll pinch it, fold it to about a 45, and then we'll grab the shorter leg and give it a little push up. I'm going to create a big gap. This is going to make it easier for us to get the battery in and also for the button to work. There needs to be a bit of a bend to those guys. Over time it can wear down too. You might have to adjust it. Be aware of that. Definitely that, you know, this is a very basic mechanism, so you're going to have to every once in a while go in there and give them a little bend back up. Don't, you know, be nice to them because they might break. Okay, so time to start gluing stuff. I use this thin Starbond. You don't have to use the thin. Honestly, if you're just starting, you may not want to. It is very thin and runny, but that's what I like about it. You don't need much. It will run. You'll see here in a minute. So basically, we got the LEDs put in there. I want to put a drop, just one drop. There you go, one and another, one on each side. And this just kind of gives them a little bit to hold on to. And then what I like to do is I use sodium bicarb. I keep wanting to call it, I've been watching too many British shows. Baking soda. So I keep a little bit in this filled print. And what I'll do is just use my little spatula tools to grab a small amount. And if you don't know, when you mix baking soda and super glue, it makes kind of like an epoxy. So what I'll do is just sprinkle a little bit. You see I'm just giving it like a little tap, try and drop some off. I want to put a little bit on either side. Oh, there's a little bit too much, but it'll be fine. So then what we're going to do is drop some more super glue on it. Disclaimer here, I'm not a chemist or anything, I guess technically, professionally. I'm a software developer. I love electronics. You know, that's what got me into coding. But anyway, the warning is this. When you mix these two, being baking soda and the CA glue, it is an exothermic reaction, so it will create heat. It's not a lot, but it is enough that if you touch it like immediately afterwards, you will know, and you might get a little bit of a burn. So don't touch it, let it sit. Only do a drop or two at a time. You can see here, excuse me, I am just doing one drop, and then I'll hit the other one. There you go. You can see the color change. The white like goes clear almost. It still ends up milky. I don't know about the quality of the video and everything, if you're going to be able to see that, what you're watching it on, but those two are now in there. They are not coming out. I mean, you could pop them out, but I find that the combination of the super glue and the baking soda really does a good job of putting them in there. And you see here, I'm just taking a little, this is just a dry brush, and I'm just wiping away the excess. I gave it a few seconds to cool down and do its thing, harden. That can vary depending where you are. You know, I'm in a very humid environment, so a lot of times it'll look like it is, but it's still kind of jelly. You want to give it a few. This is also a good time to go ahead and put those little adjustments in. And if you buy them from me fully assembled, I will have done all of this. I test them and I make sure each one works, you know, before I send them out. But if you're building it yourself, obviously you'll have to do this stuff yourself. I also like to drop a little blob of solder on that bottom one, but that's up to you. So now we're putting the battery in. You can see we're having a little bit of an issue here though. Why is it on? It's not supposed to be on unless we push the button. So what we got to do is build a little gasket. You can see my hair starting to stick out there. Sorry, it's getting pretty long. But yeah, what we need to do is create a gasket for the battery. So I've created this thing. This is going to start coming in the kits soon, but I'm still working on this. Basically, it's a little gasket for the batteries. This is printed out of TPU, and the idea is that it stops the LED from kind of basically touching the battery when it shouldn't. And when it touches the battery, that completes the circuit and turns the light on. So we only want that to happen when we push the button. So by putting a little gasket around the edge, we can prevent that accidental contact. Then it will only light when we push the button. But like I said, still working on that. So you can see here, this will demonstrate the issue. It's on, right? And we don't want that right now. The default state should be off. So you can create some more gaps in there, make sure the battery fits okay. And then, let's see, we try and put this guy in. This isn't exactly the right fit, but it'll demonstrate for you guys the proof of concept. Once it's in, you can see now it's off. But then when we push, boom, it's on. And then when we let go, it turns off. Again, over time, you might lose some of that, so you might have to go back in there and give it a slight bend up. But you see how the button works. Okay, so that's coming in the future. If you guys are watching this from the future, you might be getting one of those. You might already have it. I don't know, but this is what we do now. So basically, it's just a little bit of electrical tape. I create my own gasket. And this works really well. It's a cheap and easy way to fix it. And I know it's not pretty, but nobody can see the inside. So only you know it's there. And come on, you're already looking cool from having this awesome prop anyway to complete your outfit. So yeah, you don't even need to cover the whole thing. It just needs to really cover at least the top half. I like to do more like 2/3. You can see in the example here. And then it does make it a little bit thicker, so you might need to get in there and, like I'm doing right now, give that a little bend up. Be very careful here. You don't want to bend these too much. You can break them. I mean, LEDs are cheap, but still, no need to be wasteful. So yeah, now there's plenty of room. That thing slides in, battery slides in, adjust the legs a little bit. Oh, only one comes on. There we go. So like I said, you need a little bit of adjustment. I wouldn't worry too much about the top ones until you have it mostly assembled, because you're going to want to align it with the button. But yeah, you can see the gasket. It just keeps the two sides from touching. So the positive side there kind of rolls around. So that's what happens, is the LEDs are touching when they shouldn't. So again, easy fix. And I do have a more permanent, I guess, self-developed solution coming soon. Okay, so let's get started with the rest of the assembly. That's the electronics taken care of. Now I want to take the base and connect it to the back. So this, you want these to squeeze right up against that, because this top piece is a press fit only. You can glue it if you want. I can't stop you. I would advise against it, because once that coin cell runs out, you're going to want to replace it. And you might even want to swap factions and stuff. I have a version of this that is a couple bucks more, that comes with all 3 factions. So I'll include the blue one, the yellow one, and the red one. But yeah, when you're putting this together, you want to make sure before you glue it that you've got your tolerances good. So what I do is basically I squeeze it together, and I just make sure that that top piece isn't going to fall out. So let's get organized here. We're going to start with the base. We've got our back plate, got our super glue. Again, I'm using the thin stuff, so just 1 drop is plenty. You see it'll run all the way down the side. Grab a little, make sure you got a paper towel handy, because it does run. Wipe off the excess, and then what you want to do is push down, but also push laterally against the wall. So it's nice and flush. again, that distance is critical. If you don't make the back tight, the front won't be tight, and it won't stay. You could probably get around that by just putting like a tiny drop of super glue in like one corner of the top. So then when the batteries do run out, you can pop it out. So I did the one side. Now I'm going to do the other side. I like to do them one at a time because I don't really trust myself. It's a little bit wonky here, but what I'll do is take my tool and shove it in, kind of giving myself a little bit of a gap. Okay. There you go. You see I've created some space there, and then I'll drop. And I like to let it run down, so you can't really tell, but it's at a bit of an angle, so the glue runs down and hits everything. And now same thing, push down and laterally into the wall of the base piece. You can blow on it a little bit if you want. There's also accelerators that they sell that could work. I find they're not really necessary. In fact, they can be bad sometimes. If you want a second or two to kind of align something perfectly, you don't really get that with the accelerator. You barely get it with the regular glue. So wipe everything off here. Give that a few seconds. It should be set up. All right. So again, you want to make sure this is tight. So we're going to do another test fit. This home button is a press fit in. So there we go. Hold it upside down. There's a good test. It might fall off while you're walking around. Like I said, a little bit of glue or something, a tiny bit maybe, or don't use super glue. It's not a perfect design. We're getting there, but there you go. Throw the electronics in the middle. They just slide right in, and then you push the button. You can see that works. You might need a little bit of adjustment with the legs. You can see I did put a little, the battery has to tuck down in that little hole just a bit. And it can be a little finicky. So, you can make that gasket a little thick too. We'll cover making that in just a second. So now this is a piece that you're going to have to source yourself if you buy the kit. This is a piece of acrylic. They are 74 by 112 by 3 millimeters. So it's 3 millimeters thick, 74 wide, and 112 high. I use two types of sandpaper when I do this. I use a wet dry 1000 grit. You can tell this has been used. And then this is like some 60 grit or something like that. So I don't really use anything in between. You can if you want, but this is to do the corners. So if you look in the show, or if you noticed from the show, the corners are rounded off with like a 45. So what I do is I just hold it at a 45, and then I just count, and I try and do the exact same like run. So each pull, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I must have been off by one watching this. You can tell it's a voiceover, huh? But the point is that you want to be even. So by pulling the same amount and the same number of times on each side, they will be even. And then you want to get just a little hair on each side to get that. Again, we'll do it to the other side, 45, and then we'll go 10 pulls. So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then a little bit on the edges to just kind of get that. And now we'll come through and basically do the same thing with the other one. So you can feel it now. It's not horrible, but it's not smooth. So bring it in. You don't need to wet it here. You can if you want, but for this one I don't go in one direction. I kind of go back and forth, and I do that about 10 times, and then lean it over and hit the edges 5 times, and then the edges of the 45, and then you can just kind of feel it, and you can tell. Again, you don't need anything in between. You can go right from the really coarse, like 60, to this 1000 grit. And yeah, don't forget to get those edges. I hold it like a really shallow angle, almost like I'm sharpening a knife, just to round, bevel the edges a little bit. I also do that to all of the sides. So when you buy this from me, like this is a piece that I made. So I cut the acrylic, and then I do hazing to the back side, so you can see how it's not perfectly clear. I do that on purpose because it makes the light work better. It doesn't really show here. I'm trying to give you an example. You can see the edges are lit, and that's what you get if you just go with the straight clear. You'll get a nice edge light, but you won't get anything like throughout the body of the piece of acrylic. And that's what I really wanted. I wanted to light up. And I think they did do this on the actual show. So again, this is example only. I'm not actually doing it here because I've already hazed this one. But you want to get the wet dry sandpaper. I definitely wet it for this. And then what you want to do is just lay it face down, and then you want to maintain vertical strokes. So you want to, I just move it a little bit up and down, straight up and down as much as you can. And then every, 20, 30 seconds, stop, rinse it off, see where you're at. But definitely make sure you're only going up and down, as straight up and down as you can, because you will see those lines a little bit, only if you look really close. But again, I think it gives it a nice diffusion of the light, and it also I totally lost it. It gives a nice effect just overall. It looks kind of used as well, right? Like if you watch the show and you're a fan, you probably noticed a lot of people's devices looked a little beat up. Some people's were cracked. Some just had little scratches, especially the belters. They got to recycle devices and stuff. They don't have a lot of resources necessarily, which is crazy from the show. If you remember, they actually have all the resources, but they're not allowed to actually access them. But anyway, so if you want to assemble this thing, I usually do a dry fit because you want to make sure these are 3D printed parts, so there can be some little pieces of errant filament and stuff that get down in those gaps, and it is a tight fit, so do a dry fit first, make sure everything looks okay. You can see me picking here at the edge. I'm showing you some of those artifacts of printing. I try and clean these up as much as I can, but especially in these little gaps, sometimes you can get a little piece of filament or something gets stuck in there. So definitely do a dry fit first. Make sure they set all the way down in there, and that width is good and stuff like that. But once you've done that, it's time to glue. Again, just one drop is more than enough here for the thin stuff. So one, and then you want to work pretty quick. You want to make sure you've got this lined up, and then you just go straight down. I give it a little pinch on either side. Try not to, there you go. I got some super glue on my fingers. So have those paper towels handy and get it off quick. Otherwise, you're going to be having a bad time. But wipe off any excess. Sometimes there can be some issues. I had one issue where I guess I assembled it too quickly and packaged it up and sent it out, and the glue wasn't completely set up, or I used a little too much, and it migrated up the screen and gave it this milky, weird, dirty looking effect to the screen. So minimal glue, definitely. But it will set up quick, and there you go. So you can see we've got the main, idea of the hand terminal is here. And that's all the gluing we've got to do. So I said, make sure you've got all that tight. It'll definitely can cause issues. yeah, now let's continue on with the assembly. Like I said, all the gluing at this point is done. All we've got to do is drop in our electronics and then push the home button into place, and we'll be all set. Oh yeah, we do need to do the battery. I forgot. We haven't showed you guys that. So this is, until I start shipping my gaskets, we're going to go with this. So you just make your own. I've got a separate video just for this that I made prior to me actually selling these DIY kits. But this is all you need to do. Grab yourself some scissors and electrical tape. Cut a small bit off. It does not need to go all the way around. You want to do at least half. And then obviously this is too thick, so we'll cut about a quarter or a third off of there and make ourselves a nice little strip that we'll use as a gasket. So I take that and I like to roll it around the edge. So I put it right in the middle as much as you can. I'll kind of hold it down with the one, you can see, try and stick it down, hold it with that finger, and then I give it a little bit of a stretch. I find that this electrical tape always sticks better when you give it a little bit of a stretch. So you see me pulling it just a little bit, and right now we're only concerned with getting it down the middle of the gasket. So there we go. Now we can start to fold over all those edges, and you can see now what we're going for here. It just gives us a nice little gasket around the edge, keeps that positive terminal from touching, because it does wrap around the side on these batteries. It's an awesome compact design, but this is the one drawback, which isn't really that big of a deal. You can work around it in most cases, and this is how we're going to do it here. So you got that all pressed around, and as you can see, it doesn't even go all the way around, but you do want to make sure you insert it with the tape side forward. So if you have a gap, make sure that's all the way at the back, and then you're just going to slide it in. Here I'm doing it backwards, so it's not working. That's the positive side, with the positive side down, negative side up. There we go. Now it'll work. All right. Learning is fun. So now we just drop this in. You see I want to do it at a bit of an angle. There's that hole in the bottom. The battery's not going to protrude, but it does need the majority of that space to make it work. There's a little bit of flexibility in here, but not a lot. And you see, just drop the home button on top and just press fit. Again, you can drop some glue or something in there, maybe some double-sided tape. I don't know. Experiment. Let me know. Give me comments, things like that. Okay, so you can see here I did need to adjust a little bit. This is definitely something you might need to do. You just want those legs to align right under the home button. So it might take a couple attempts, trial and error, but it's not a big deal. You see, still not quite there. So I like to use these little tools just because they're more precise. My old hands aren't as good as they used to be. And did we get it? I saw one, I think. Almost. Yep. Again, this is how it goes sometimes when you assembling these things yourself. When you buy it from me, I'll have done all of this. So worst case, you'll have to adjust it maybe after using it for a while. This is designed to be a very simple mechanism, not even mechanism, simple circuit, I guess. You can even call it that technically, I guess. But you see I'm just doing some more adjustments here. I usually like to solder right there. I will get a little bit of flux and hit the leads, and then I'll have them just barely touch. You don't want them stacked on top of each other. I want them just barely touching, and then I'll just put the littlest bit of solder on there. You don't want to create like a blob or anything that's going to interfere with the battery sitting nice and flush. And there you go. Now I've got it all adjusted. And you can see the edges are lit up. You can even see a little bit of the screen, and I'll turn off the light on my workbench here. Now you can really see it. And the blue is probably the worst of the effects. Maybe the yellow, but I don't know. The yellow and the red seem like very strong lights. You can even get a little bit of casting off of this. So there you go. And that's it. So it's fully assembled now. So it's not too hard. And if you're not afraid to do a little DIY, this is a very simple project. Obviously I'm biased, but I think it's simple. But it's also fun. When you build things yourself, you end up being a bit more attached to them, and you learn something maybe too. So, anyways, I hope you learned something from this, and if you do decide to get it, I hope this helps. If not, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you run into any issues, if you've got one of these, or you can always print these for free too. If you've got your own printer, everything is on Printables. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description to my account there, and you can see all my designs, including this, and they're all free. So I only charge for the assembled or the pre-printed parts. Yeah, I guess that's it.